Welcome to KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice. We're telling the stories of Kansas City nonprofits and the people behind them. KC Cares is the intersection of the nonprofit and profit communities, making Kansas City a better place to live, work, and play. This KC Cares segment is brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation, www.kaufman.org. I'm Ruth Baum-Biggess. Homelessness continues to be a challenge across the country, as well as here in our own community. In Kansas City, Missouri alone, 2,200 people experience homelessness each night. Each night. Being unhoused isn't just about not having a safe and secure place to sleep. It brings more problems with it, including health issues, lack of food, security, and more. The nonprofit Hillcrest Transitional Housing is taking on this situation, providing housing for homeless families, singles, and youth, with a disciplined educational program within caring, supportive environment. And the organization has found ways to provide support through 2 thrift shops. Well, joining us today to talk about this remarkable organization is Tom Lally. He's president and CEO, and Kyleigh Millford, operations manager. Welcome. We're just so glad to have you and dive into this challenge we face.
Absolutely. Ruth, thank you for having us.
Tom, tell us a little bit, paint the scene for us about what we're facing here in the Kansas City metro with homelessness, or unhoused, I know is now the term that's preferred.
Ruth, it's a growing wave, and it has always been around. You mentioned about 2,000 individuals each evening throughout the metropolitan area. Really, that number is significantly larger. When you start to paint the picture of those individuals within the entire metropolitan area that are at or below poverty level, you're talking about a lot of housing insecurity. In Johnson County alone, a county of wealth and a lot of resources, there are 32,000 individuals that are living at or below poverty level. That's a paycheck away. That's a missed opportunity to get work. And then they go into that spiral of being unhoused and other economic insecurity. So it is just a growing segment of our population, unfortunately, and Hillcrest is here to serve.
You hear economic reports, unemployment is at a low rate. We deal with inflation, wages are up. So why is this problem continuing to grow? And if you need to throw us back into the COVID years, I don't know if that really threw a wrench into it as well.
It certainly didn't help, but it has been a growing problem for the last multiple years, multiple decades. And to many respects, homelessness is a housing issue, but it's also an economic development issue. We all know that affordable housing is a misnomer in the greater Kansas City area, if not the entire United States. So for individuals with a stagnated minimum wage, they're having more and more difficulty going to the grocery store and buying groceries and paying for daycare and paying for medical needs and insurance and gasoline, and then trying to afford an apartment or a rental property near their work, near their children's schools. It's becoming very, very difficult. So as we are growing, especially the Kansas City area, which is so spread out, transportation costs are a significant portion. And really that rule of thumb of not spending more than 30% of your salary is not being upheld, because housing costs and everything else associated with that is just out of line with that 30%.
So what does Hillcrest do to help folks who face this? And Kyleigh, we're going to come to you in a minute. Don't you worry.
Hillcrest has a very unique approach to solving homelessness. You'd mentioned a very high accountability program. We own and operate several campuses throughout the entire metropolitan area. For our adult side, individuals will come and live rent-free, utility-free for about 90 days. Let me just repeat that real quick. Individuals, households will come and live with us rent-free, utility-free for about 90 days in their own apartment unit. During that time, they have a lot of expectations, a lot of accountability to help move themselves from homelessness to self-sufficiency. One is weekly case management, working with our case managers to remove and solve a lot of those barriers to permanent housing. Another, which is a hallmark of our program, is budget counseling. We subscribe to an all needs, no wants budget. So everything that we thought we wanted maybe isn't a need. Certainly, so we budget to every penny, and that has proven extraordinarily successful over the years. We have life skill speakers come in on a weekly basis. We also have community living where all the residents of all of our campuses get together and kind of talk and build that community. So because of that, high accountability, it's a work related program. So in order to qualify for our program, in order to be successful through our program, every adult within our programs have to have a full-time job. Sometimes the best way out of poverty is a full-time job. And so all of those high accountability items that our residents, our clientele subscribe to make them very, very successful during that journey.
And you said you have multiple campuses. At any given time, how many folks are living under a Hillcrest roof?
We have about 90 units under our management. And so, we're always kind of bringing new folks in and graduating some of our residents. So at any one time, we've got at least 125 households under our programs. So in addition to our adult programs, we also have a youth program for unaccompanied minors, 16 to 24 years of age. That program is just a little bit different where that population can stay with us for up to 2 years. And really the primary goal is education. Let's get you situated for a long-term success. When you can, we're going to have you work part-time. That helps with some budgeting and also responsibility. So we run those two programs, and we run all that throughout the Kansas City area.
And I know that 16 to 24 age group is a growing group, unfortunately.
It sure is. We have a couple individuals that are 16 years of age. They're having some difficulties with their kind of family dynamics. And so Hillcrest becomes that de facto family for them.
Well, that's wonderful. Kyleigh, how did you come to Hillcrest?
Well, I actually came to Hillcrest last March of 2023 after deciding that I no longer wanted to teach. So I was a teacher in public schools, made a career change, and just knew I needed to continue serving people. And I actually was in a credit recovery room in my last education position. And I witnessed another teacher recommend the youth program to one of the students. And so that was my first interaction hearing about Hillcrest, hearing of a service like this, and that Kansas City really has that need right now. And it was the first place I applied. I went for it with my whole heart, and here I am. Found my home here for sure.
Well, how wonderful for you to transition your educational background into something that you're still educating. Tell us a little bit about what your role is with Hillcrest.
So I'm operations manager. I coordinate our facilities, projects, and maintenance. So we do coordinate that out. And then I also coordinate different centralized purchasing and things like that. So with the facilities projects, that could include the bigger grant projects we have, or to other small local volunteer projects such as our campus gardens or other groups that we bring on campus to work on our sites.
Well, I want to dive deeper into the garden in a moment, but tell us about some of the community projects. So this is involving people on all of the campuses in activities, or is it specific to each, let's say, big house?
Well, so what Tom explained about Hillcrest and our programming really was involved in our programs department with our case management and things like that. We still have other departments in Hillcrest like development, administration, social enterprise, and thrift, and we all work to support our programming and our case managers.
Right.
And so that's kind of where we have those community ties. We have so many community supporters of Hillcrest. We have sites in Lee Summit, Independence, Overland Park, Kansas City, Kansas, and we have great supporters at all of those sites. And so our development team works to bring in the community resources, and then I help out again on the facilities end, making sure we have consistent facilities at all of our sites and that our residents at Lee Summit are getting the same service as our residents in Kansas City, Kansas.
I don't know which one of you want to take this question. So when someone is living with you, let's say in the 90-day transitional program, what responsibilities do they have to Hillcrest or in terms of their own apartment?
Certainly, we are not only helping them move from homelessness to self-sufficiency, but a huge part of that is helping them to gain those independent skills for cleanliness, making sure that their apartments are always clean. We're always having our residents do chores around the campuses. So we have two inspections, apartments inspections each and every week. One's a surprise inspection, one's a scheduled inspection. And our case managers are there to help kind of teach and guide and mentor a lot of our residents for that. Maybe someone grew up in a household that cleanliness was not a priority. And certainly, I think cleanliness and cleaning an apartment is a learned behavior. And so our residents are learning that behavior a lot of times. And our case managers, and as Kyleigh had mentioned, our supporters really rally around that household and provide that support.
Kyleigh, I want to go back to you. You mentioned a garden. Let's talk a little bit about it. This is really exciting.
Yeah, I love this project. What would you like to know?
Well, there's a garden, and it has involved someone who's a former resident. So tell us how this blossomed. When did it start? What is it? And how does it pay back?
Okay, so like I said, when I started last March 2023, we already had this garden somewhat operating at Kansas City, Kansas campus. But what I realized when I was observing it grow throughout the season was that there was really one main person working on it. Her name is Ginger Baker, and she is a former resident of Hillcrest. So she was in our 90-day program, and that was about 3 years ago. When she was in our program, again, she had to maintain that full-time job while she was doing her budget counseling and meeting all of those requirements, and she still found it within her to start that community garden there. We did already have the raised planter boxes, I know, but they were not being utilized. So she really took this into her own hands and began utilizing the resources she could come up with her time. And I thought that was pretty incredible. So again, I came last March, and so she's already been working on this. And I just knew that there was a way we could incorporate this into our programming. And again, with my education background, in a way that is sustainable. It provides produce for our residents, and again, gives a little bit of generational education that will last beyond their time of our program.
So residents actually can get, I assume maybe there's some vegetables and things in the garden itself?
Absolutely. So this year, I began working with Ginger on it this year for 2024, and I reinstated our partnerships with Kansas City Community Gardens and the Giving Grove. They've been great partners with us, and they kind of helped us out with the planning part of it. Like, let's have some intentions for what we're doing and goals. Right. So we set some of those goals. We had timelines. We had a really awesome volunteer group that got scheduled right when I received our seeds and transplants from Kansas City Community Gardens. So we had a Keller Williams volunteer group come out, and I handed them off, and they planted them all for us, and it was awesome. And so from there, we've been growing. The spring season brought us carrots, onions, cabbage, kale, and potatoes. And me and Ginger, we tended to the garden. We've harvested, and then from there on, I distributed them to our campus pantries, each one of them. So it's been awesome.
That is cool. It just goes to show you that nonprofits can take something on that had a little seed and build it out so it really produces all the alliterations there on a garden. That's really a wonderful thing, and I'm sure that your residents love it. Tom, I want to come back to you. Kyleigh mentioned pantries. Does each of your housing situations have a pantry right there?
They sure do. So all of our housing campuses have a pantry for not only food, for canned foods and staples, but also for the proteins and also the perishables. We're always in need of those donations, and thankfully, the Kansas City community is very, very generous. But we always have enough corn and green beans and canned peanut butter and spaghetti. We never get enough spaghetti sauce or jelly, and certainly proteins and perishables are needed for all of the growing families that we have on campus. So, and those are the things that are really hitting the pocketbooks of our residents, because they do spend their dollars, their paychecks on daycare and medicine and groceries and gasoline. But the more that we can help provide for them during their stay with Hillcrest, the more that they can save, the more that they can pay down debt, and also get themselves on that track for their next housing.
So someone's with you, a guest is with you for 90 days, 3 months. What happens at the end of that? And especially if they don't have housing.
Right. Really, on day one is that first initial day of when they're starting to look for housing during their time with Hillcrest. I mean, that is the ultimate goal, and so they're already making that really detailed plan with their case manager to find that next housing of their choice. Certainly, if someone has found housing on day 100 or day 110, they will stay with us until that they are able to move in. But if someone is not actively looking, that becomes their priority. That becomes that mission with their case manager to find that next housing.
Tell us a little bit about not retention rate, but recidivism. Are people successful? Do you track them post living with you?
We've been around since about 1976, and we've had some wonderful households and families go through. Just recently, within the last several years, we really started to track those numbers. We've hired an individual that's the director of client services to really reach out and help case manage a lot of that alumni program, is what we call that. Because in reality, we've got some individuals that have gone through our programs that are phenomenally successful. They have that lived experience that is so important to be able to share and pass on to our current residents. So we want to bring those very, very successful alumni back into Hillcrest. And now we have that avenue to be able to do so. They could be board members, they could be case managers, they could be mentors, volunteers, peer counselors. But there's also that segment of that population of alumni that are struggling because life is tough. And just because you go through Hillcrest one time and are successful doesn't mean 5 years from now something might not trip you up. And we want to be there for that individual. We want to be able to provide budget counseling and access to the pantry, make sure that they're kind of on that right track or get stabilized. So we are doing so much better in tracking that and reaching out and helping and providing services to that alumni base.
How many folks work for you? I mean, my gosh, you've got lots of places and everything. How big's your staff, and how do you keep track of everybody?
Well, we have great staff to keep track of all of our great staff. We have about over 70 employees with Hillcrest. And as Kyleigh had mentioned, we have certainly our thrift stores. We have a wonderful thrift store in Lee Summit, and we also relocated our Johnson County thrift store to the Overland Park site just across the street from Johnson County Community College. And all of those programs with development and finance and administration programs, thrift stores. We need a lot of folks because there's a lot of need out there. And thankfully, folks like Kyleigh and all of our staff are committed and really, really smart about what they're doing. So that's why Hillcrest is successful.
Kyleigh, are you involved with the thrift stores as well in your role?
So I do coordinate for all of our sites, the maintenance and facilities projects. So I don't get into the management of the store or procedures, anything like that, or the volunteers that work there, but I'll do the facilities work there as well. Yes.
You have enough to balance on your plate working with everybody. I want to talk about these thrift stores. How long have you had them? And was the idea to bring in some extra revenue maybe?
Absolutely. Anytime that a nonprofit can have earned income, that just makes it a little bit easier for some of those discretionary dollars to help fund some of the programs. So we use a lot of our earned income through our social enterprise functions, including thrift store, for our unfunded resident needs. and so that just provides a whole opportunity for our residents to be very, very successful. The thrift store in Lee Summit started about 11 years ago, and it is just wildly successful. We're so fortunate to be able to have a huge core of volunteers, dedicated daily volunteers that come out and do the production behind the scenes for hanging all the clothes and putting them on the floor, cashiering. We always need more volunteers, so I'll put a plug out there for individuals that might want to come and volunteer either at the thrift stores or in the offices or on the campuses. But about 6 years ago, we opened up a thrift store in Lenexa. It did very well for us. That lease came up, and we were able to move to our new wonderful location at College in Quivira, and that's doing extraordinarily well for us. So the thrift stores bring in much needed earned income. It provides that a lot of times that frontline marketing and exposure to the community about what we do and who we are. And certainly it provides a service to a lot of individuals out in the communities that need affordable clothing and household items that otherwise might not be able to get it.
So how do you stock the stores?
Donations, donations, donations. So thankfully, we have built up a nice reputation in Lee Summit and the surrounding communities. Also in Wyandotte and Johnson counties, a lot of our donors are going pulling through the drive-through drop off at both locations and donating a lot of bags of clothes. We get a lot of calls from realtors wanting us to come by and clean out houses. So we pick up furniture. It's a lot of windshield time, but it's also a lot of generosity through all the different households and neighborhoods that are out in the community.
So if people want to donate, what's the best way for them to find out how to do that?
Certainly, if you go to our website, which is hillcrestkc.org, click on thrift. There's an easy way to be able to schedule a pickup. We accept drive-through donations at both of our sites. You can always call kind of any one of our campuses and talk to folks about there, because really we need a lot of donations for our thrift stores and our retail centers. But when you have 90 apartments under your management, everything that we all use today to get ready for work and for our day, a bed, a toothbrush, a coffee pot, a refrigerator, all of those things, we need those times 90 for all of our apartments, for all of our households. So new sheets and pillows and all of those things. So donations are critical to the success of Hillcrest.
Have you seen any change in the level of donation over time? Are you getting more or less as, people age and clean out, or,
Sure. It's interesting within the thrift store kind of world, because during the kind of economic boom, people are disposing of a lot of things and they want to buy new.
Mm-hmm.
So thrift stores are receiving a lot of those items, which we're very, very grateful for. When there's a little bit of an economic downturn, people are looking for bargains. And so we're still getting the donations, but I think also sales are driven up a little bit because of that economic downturn. So we're very, very fortunate. Unfortunately, society, or American society, has a lot of stuff, maybe a little bit too much stuff. And,
too much stuff.
Folks are always looking for that avenue to be able to donate it properly and responsibly.
Well, we hope everybody who's listening, please consider Hillcrest for that donation. Tom, I want to ask you've been with the organization for a while. What is the greatest challenge that you all face, and how are you addressing it?
I think with any nonprofit, it's easy to say donations and financial contributions, but it really is larger than that. Within today's economy, there is significantly a growing population of individuals that are suffering, a growing population of individuals that are kind of circling that spiral down of economic insecurity. And that scares me. That keeps me up at night. And I know it keeps all of us up at night. So all of those resources, time, talent, and treasure from everyone in Kansas City really has to be focused on serving those individuals that are on that cusp of economic insecurity and homelessness. It's going to be successful when we have a true public-private and nonprofit partnership. local governments, local decision makers are involved. They're keenly aware of the situation, and I'm proud of a lot of our local constituencies and communities for everything that they're doing. I think private corporations and businesses are just now starting to realize the importance of stable housing and good wages for them to be able to retain their employees to keep up the production. And certainly nonprofits like Hillcrest and some others within the space are working to make sure that there's the awareness, but more importantly, the services that are there to keep individuals safely housed.
Kyleigh, now that you've been there a year, a little over a year, how has this experience impacted you? You know, give us that insight now that you've lived in the world for a year.
Yeah, I will say, like I said, when I was teaching, and that was my first observation of someone being referred to this program, I really didn't understand the depth of the suffering that is happening in our community. And when I first came here to Hillcrest, I actually started as a program assistant, which was on one of our sites. And again, I was talking to applicants every day. I was learning about the issue. So I would say that's the biggest impact working here has had for me, is just recognizing what the state of our community right now, and the amount of resources and people that are ready to help and ready to make positive impact on it. And so it's been really fueling and exciting and given me some direction for serving.
Well, we are so lucky in our community that Hillcrest is here. And for anybody who's listening to this, if you have somebody that you know that's unhoused or facing that, certainly go to hillcrestkc.org. You all are there to help and to guide and provide dignity with it. And again, we're so grateful that you're there. And thank you for your time to share this wonderful organization with us.
Thank you very much for everything that you do.
Thank you for joining us for KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice. We're produced by Charitable Communications, which is a nonprofit. This KC Cares segment was brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation, www.kauffman.org. If you'd like to be a guest or underwriting opportunities, please visit our website, which is kccaresonline.org. And spread the love. You'll find us on Facebook and Twitter at KC Cares Radio, and on Instagram at KC Cares Online. Don't forget, you can catch us Saturday mornings on ESPN, 1510 AM and 94.5 FM. Thank you for joining us on KC Cares.